with this new way of dressing and business casual. We got the memo, but we don't have a manual of what it means. So you have an opportunity to use it. Use your dressing as a strategy to propel you so that you can create more of what you want in your life.
Hello, and welcome to Lonely at the Top, the podcast where high-level leaders speak the truths they rarely get to say out loud. I'm your host, Rachel Alexandria, former psychotherapist turned soul medic to founders, executives, and decision makers navigating the emotional weight of leadership. If you've ever felt the strain of being responsible for everything and no one you can really talk to about it, you're in the right place. In each episode, we go behind the curtain with a courageous leader to explore the real cost of holding power and what it takes to stay human at the top. Today's guest is Susana Perczek. She's a corporate stylist with over a decade of experience helping C-suite executives and women leaders harness their professional style as a strategic asset to amplify their presence, influence, and impact. Before transitioning into style, she built a career in advertising, specializing in brand storytelling, mastering how visuals, design, and narrative shape perception. Today, she applies that expertise to help women craft a powerful and authentic leadership presence through style. I am so excited for this conversation because I've worked with stylists a couple different times in my life. It's how I learned that as a larger chested person, I should not wear the dropped armpit thing because it makes me look so much heavier. That was the very first thing I ever learned from a stylist. I was like, oh, yeah, that's not flattering on me. I think it's called the raglan sleeve, right? Is that right?
The raglan sleeve, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Welcome, Susana.
Oh, well, wonderful to be here today. Thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. We met through, I believe, Jessica Lackey's membership.
Yeah,
And I was really taken by your passion for what you do. And I really feel like you have something meaningful and profound to say to our audience. You came from a background in advertising.
correct.
And what were you doing back then?
So, to bring you way, way back, to put it into context, since I was a very, very young girl, I always was connected to the arts. So, anything that had to do with creativity, it was my playground. So, I would spend hours drawing and painting and putting shows and putting the clothes for the show and then doing the invitations for the show and then sort of forcing my parents or anybody that was in the house to pay to come and see us perform. So
That
that
sounds
was
so fun.
either that or I would play store, that I had a store so everybody can,
Hmm.
can kind of giving you the idea, but always very connected to creativity and to beauty.
Hmm.
And from a very, very young age, really passionate about dressing and fashion. However, because I have so much talent with drawing and painting, I decided to pursue a career in the fine arts and graphic design. And
Hmm.
within that, once I graduated with a Bachelor of Fine Arts and Advertising, that's where my career got me into the world of advertising, storytelling, and branding.
Mm-hmm. And you were in advertising for how long?
I was in advertising for about, I would say, 10 years
Wow.
of
Yeah.
my life. I started from the very bottom, working in the studio when the computers, I'm dating myself, but when the Apple really came about, and I was really putting together all the designs from the art directors. And from then on, I started growing my career. And then I stepped into, they saw my leadership capacity. They saw how much I work great with people. I had the qualities of a leader. So the agency at the time I was living in Miami, I said I want more than just to be working in the studio with with the art directors. So that's how I stepped into the world of management, and I became an assistant to the print production director. And then she saw that I had the capacity, that then I became a project manager, a print production manager. And then from there, I moved to San Francisco. And then I stepped into a bigger role where I was the director of the whole print production department, which at the time, the internet was starting to be a player. So really print
Mm.
was the big deal. It's like probably when you remember all the September issues for any magazines were like,
Oh,
like
yeah.
the yellow books, and everybody
Mm-hmm.
was waiting for Vogue or GQ or whatever magazine. If you were connected to the world of fashion, it was like the big thing. And then billboards and outdoor and newspapers, everything print had a big, it was predominant. So my role was involved because not only I was managing the creative and I was working with the creatives, but I was also working with the account services because I needed to put together all the budgets and make sure we stay
Mm-hmm.
within budget, but then also working with all the outside vendors because if
Mm-hmm.
I made a mistake, it was me, or if there was no ad to send and it was a white page on the newspaper, they
Mm.
end up
Oof.
being come. So it was like wearing a lot of hats. So
And a
really,
lot of
and
responsibility.
a lot of responsibility, and also
Yeah.
knowing how to manage a lot of people. So
Yeah.
that's where my journey, which I've already had it, but the idea of presence became very, very important.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew how like presence was be, I would have to be and speak and present myself with the creative department in a very different
Mm-hmm.
way to get their attention than an account
Mm-hmm.
executive.
Mm-hmm. You're talking kind of about code switching too, right? The way that we appear and the language that we use, our whole presence has to be different for different audiences. And I think that's more and more true the higher up you go on the ladder.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And as I was also being inspired and influenced when I would see that there were some women at the top, it happened to be that when I was working in one of the agencies in San Francisco, the owner was a woman. And she had such an incredible presence. I remember her name was Agnieszka Winkler. So you knew when she was coming into the room, and she really inspired me, as well as another colleague and friend. Her name is Claudia. She went in to become CFO and go to big, big roles, but again, a great influence on being a woman in leadership, even at the time.
So you went from having so much interest in the arts and in design into this career where you rose higher and higher and higher. Can you tell us about a time in your life where everything probably looked like you were performing really well, like everything was great, but you felt inside something needs to change?
Yes. And that, Rachel, was the time when I was married at the time and we decided to start a family.
Mm.
And that for me was like, when I was pregnant, I was like, oh yes, I'm coming back. It's like, of course, especially with the first child, you just have no idea
Mm.
what you're getting into. And once we had our daughter and the reality hit, it was from the idea that working in advertising, as many people know, they're really, really long hours, especially the
Mm-hmm.
creatives. They get going at 11, and
Mm-hmm.
then for them, 7 p.m. is like it's lunchtime. It's like their life revolves. And then in the middle of the day, they go on a ride bike and then they get inspired. And it's like, whatever. So for me, it started to be like, guys, at 5 o'clock, I need to check out. I have a family
Mm-hmm.
now, I need to go. And then I started to get the looks, and I was, because
Mm-hmm.
at that level I was very organized, so I wanted to get everything ready. But as I mentioned before, sometimes I was dependent on the creatives. If I didn't get those files and if I didn't get those approvals, we couldn't move through the process. So it became an issue where it started to create a lot of friction with what I also wanted for myself besides
Mm-hmm.
my work as an executive, as much as I loved it. But it was my commitment to my family, the commitment to my daughter, and seeing that those early ages and the early stage that I wasn't going to be present for her. And I wasn't finding a way where the agency was willing to compromise with me. And also at the time, we didn't have Zoom. We didn't have the
Mm.
technology and the
Mm-hmm.
idea, especially after COVID, that it's possible to have more of a blend. It was like either black or white, either you're in or you're out. And
Right.
after much consideration, I decided that it was time for I was going to step down because I am a leader. I'm somebody that's always lived her life with excellence. So I wanted to be there for my daughter in the early stages, knowing that I was going to be building the foundation. That if my daughter had a very strong foundation, then the time will come where I was going to be able to either re-enter the workforce or find something else. But I was just not happy at work anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That makes sense. So you made the decision to step down from that executive position. And then you were a very dedicated mother for a while. And then when you came back to work, you decided to do something very different.
Yes, in fact, 3 years later, I had my son. And then when I went back, also the industry had changed. I was different, and the industry was different. And that's when, again, I've always been a person that is not willing to sacrifice her life because I think life is precious and life is
Yeah.
happening in the moment, and we really don't know. So I've always been very committed to living my best life and going for big things. And in a way, that's if many of the listeners or viewers are wondering, like, where is she from? I was born in Buenos Aires and then I moved to Peru, where I did all my high school, and then I decided to move to the United States, always willing to go and take a risk and do something for what's possible, for what can I create, what can I see, the world. You just don't know the possibilities that.
That's really the mark of a leader, right? The
Mhm.
willingness to take risks is the mark of a true leader.
Thank you. I think it's one of them for sure, along with being wanting to be a lifelong learner and having curiosity. So I wasn't willing to sacrifice my family because of my own family history. It was also for me very, very important to create something very strong. It was something that it was in my DNA. So yes,
Mm.
so I decided that I was going to close the chapter in advertising. As much I want to say, I there were so many aspects that I absolutely loved, and I still have the best fun memories of putting the music all out and just rocking it in the studio and just like, or the excitement of when a campaign becomes international and it's out and you're seeing it everywhere you go in the Muni or in a
Mm-hmm.
subway. So yes, but that I knew, like anything, it had to end for something new to begin.
And what is the new thing that you began?
So something that I briefly mentioned, since I was also a very, very young girl, I used to play with clothes. And it started in my grandma's closet when she would be getting ready. She was very much fond of the arts and especially music. So when she would be getting ready to go to the opera in Buenos Aires, to go to the Teatro Colón, which is like the Kennedy Center here in DC, she would get all dressed and I would be fascinated watching her. So I would put on her heels and her pearls and her lipstick and a purse. And I would pretend that I also was going to a show. The show was going to watch TV. But as long as I would behave, my grandma was like, play with everything you want, as long as you don't break my pearls. And then I would stay at the time there in Buenos Aires with a nanny, and my grandma would go, and I would be like as happy as I could be, wearing all her things. So I've always, from my very young age, I've been connected to fashion and to clothes and being almost like stepping into a persona when you wear something. It's like you become
Yeah.
somebody else, and that really
Yeah.
stays throughout my high school, through coming to the United States. And it also helped me because as much as, let's say, when I was new into the United States, and as much as I have blonde hair and you can think that I'm American, I would start speaking and I wasn't, but it was my clothes allow me to almost have a different identity and be part
Mm.
of the group. And then
Mm-hmm.
also allow me to be very aware, like when I wanted to stand out, what could I do with my clothes so that I would be unique and I would stand out. So, with that said, because I was so passionate about clothes, I decided, you know what? I should do something with this because I do have a talent to dress and to see designs and to see like what's coming next. That even during the days in advertising, women will say, Susanna, can you shop for me? Or can we go shopping together?
Yeah.
Because and I would say sure, and then everybody they were like, oh my god. So anyways, when I was thinking, okay, how am I going to reinvent myself, I said I want to do this, that it brings me so much joy. And short story, I decided to start again being willing to be humble. I went into a store and I started working as a sales associate.
Uh-huh.
And when I did, very very quickly, every woman was either saying, I want to take you home. Can you dress me? I want exactly
Mm.
what you have. Or, I want you,
Yeah.
or I want
Yeah.
to take you home, or what? You've made this so simple. For me, dressing can be such a daunting, overwhelming, stressful experience. And you switched it around that I just feel great. Everything works, and I'm ready to go. So, in a short period
Mm-hmm.
of time, I said, I think I have a business opportunity here. And
Right.
the more that I saw that, that's how then I step into my styling business that now I've been doing for, it's going to be 10 years.
Oh my gosh. Well, congratulations. 10 years is that's a remarkable milestone being in
Thank
business.
you.
And
Yeah.
I love the story of you being the young girl and dressing, watching your grandmother dress up and playing dress up because like I resonate with that. I think that is a very particular girlhood experience. My mom also would dress up for things and put on the fancy perfume from her tray of fancy perfumes, right?
Hmm.
And get her jewelry out of the box. And,
Yeah.
I just watching a parent beautify themselves is such a pleasing experience
Mhm.
because it makes them feel special. It feels like a ritual, which our American culture is so depleted of. We don't really have a lot of healthy rituals in this culture. And so that's kind of a small ritual to participate in. Like my parent is going to go out and be somewhere elevated, right? And they're dressing up for respect and admiration. And that feels like a wonderful thing as a child to celebrate and then you want to participate in.
I mean, 1,000%. You've touched on many, many key areas that I think are even a conversation in themselves, the idea of rituals and the power of
Mm.
rituals, in the idea of being inspired by seeing somebody else. Like you said, you saw
Mm-hmm.
your mother, I saw my grandmother, I also saw my mom, and I also grew up in a culture where, especially in Buenos Aires, beauty is very much like a theme. It's a capital that is very much like Madrid or Paris or New
Mm-hmm.
York,
Mm-hmm.
and people dress. It's a
Mm-hmm.
culture where it's part of the conversation, and
Yeah.
for women also to show, and men as well, to show the feminine side, the beauty side.
So you bring this wonderful cultural heritage and awareness to so many women who really deeply need it. Um, I wanted to ask you, what is it that you see so many, because you work with a lot of C-suite women
Correct.
specifically, right?
Yes.
What is it that you see because you're kind of in the back door, right? Like you're behind the scenes, you're behind the dressing screen with them. What
Yes.
do you see about the weight that they are carrying and how they're handling that and how can you use clothing and wardrobe attire to help lighten that load?
Wow, what a wonderful question. I have a couple of answers. One of them is that for many of these women executives, they are operating in a man's world where the energy is very masculine, as far as the energy of you need to be decisive, you need to be making decisions, you need to be direct, you need to be sharp. So a lot of masculine energies. So sometimes with many of them, my work is about inviting them to bring in their femininity. That it's
Mm,
okay. You can be masculine, but also you can bring that femininity. And how can you do that? One way is with your clothing. So
mhm,
as you are bringing in, beauty has more of an feminine energy. So inviting them to dress in ways that they don't need to show up like men, or they don't need to, like I said, with this new way of dressing and the business casual, we got the memo, but we don't have a manual of what it means for a woman to dress
mm,
like a business casual. What does it really mean? So my
mhm,
invitation is forget about that business casual. Forget about this, like, oh, I don't want to be too much. Oh no, I don't want to stand out. But let's work on who Rachel is and what makes you
mhm,
special. And let's allow the clothes to do the speaking. That's where branding and storytelling comes in. And
mm,
so that is one way that I help women. And they have told me that they have really appreciated that they are perhaps in a group where there's 100 men and there are 8 women. Okay, these are
mhm,
at a high level, let's say consulting firm partner level. And for
mhm,
these women to show up to this meeting and show up in a blouse with flowers
mhm,
and maybe electric with one of the colors being electric green, you
mhm,
know, and not that she's showing in a white shirt with a navy
mhm,
blazer and having a
mm,
dress that has flowers and it has green. It's like, whoa.
mhm.
And that she feels like, yeah, this is who I am. I don't need to
Yeah,
hide that I'm a woman. I
yeah.
don't have to hide my qualities. And then on top of that, getting validation as well from men to say that
Mhm.
almost they want that, they were missing that energy
Yeah,
from women,
yeah,
from a woman.
yeah. It's such a struggle because it is still in higher levels of power, still very much a man's patriarchal world, at least in this culture. And
And it's
and in certain, yeah, especially certain industries for sure. And it's so interesting that there's both a culture of suppression and blend in, and then there's what happens when you make everybody conform to a homogeneic way of being. It's boring and we're missing each other. So I also notice, because I've been in my industry for almost 20 years. So I've heard so many of these deeper conversations. And I notice people wanting to blend in, people wanting to fit in so that they don't get ostracized. But you know what else is powerful is confidence. And
Mhm.
when a person feels like they're not masking who they are, they're just showing up as who they are, and but feeling like they look great, feeling like it still fits the function. I
Yeah,
can see how that actually achieves it. That achieves that blending of like I belong here, but I'm also being uniquely me.
you nailed it exactly. And that's the work that I do. How can I bring the
Yeah.
outside to match the inside, so dressing becomes a strategy, so that creates the alignment. And then the most important thing is that invites this woman to go for what she wants. If she's in this position, might I invite them to open themselves up to a bigger conversation. It's like, what
Mm-hmm.
else do you want? What are you going for? And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
one of the things they want is that they've told me, I want to bring more women along. I want to invite them more. And I
Mm.
said, okay, so if that's their intention, then that's why it's so important that you're showing up fully. So the showing up fully, yes, preparing for the
Mm-hmm.
presentation, being bright. Obviously, you have worked really hard. You come from really, many of them from really great institutions of education. But I said your presence, what you're wearing, what story are you telling? How you can be remembered?
Mm-hmm.
How do they know that you are in the room? And let's bring that in. And obviously, just like I need help with when it comes to my numbers, and I have an accountant, you know, that helps me with my P&L and taxes. And she's taught me, but I still like, you manage that piece for
You
me,
do that
because
part. Yeah.
it's not really my thing, and I'm working. That's why they come to me. And then, like, I got you, I get it, because we're always, if you're in a leadership, like you mentioned, you are always evolving. We're always
Mm-hmm.
being in that energy that we need to shed, because it's like
Mm-hmm.
life, right? You shed and you open up to something new, and you shed and you open up, and that's what makes it, I think, exciting. And also what I've
Mm-hmm.
seen of women that could be in their 70s, in their 80s, and they're so vibrant and alive,
Mm-hmm.
and because they're always thinking, instead of like, oh no, I'm done, it's more like, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
The what's next. So it's this, with that invitation, that my clients are like, yeah, let's do it, Susana. And first they're like, oh, it's almost like stepping your feet on the water, you've never done it. And it's just maybe we start with 2 pounds, with 3 pounds,
Yeah.
and then they're
Yeah.
like, okay, this is where you feel comfortable. And like you mentioned, it's really personal. There's no trend, there's no
Mm-hmm.
following somebody else in the office, but it's really unique to who they are. And that's why people, because it's become so authentic, people connect, and many times, or often, get inspired to then the permission to be themselves as well. So it becomes like a,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it has that
Yeah,
effect.
a virtuous cycle. Yeah, I love that. I have a client who I've had for many years who started out as an associate lawyer in a not-for-profit governmental organization, NGO, whatever that stands for. I don't remember at the moment. And one of her assets that she used to discount is she's very into fashion and she's so good at it. She's just got that creative eye. She can
Yeah.
throw a great party. She can dress just to like really impress people. And she used to think like she did it because it's something that brought her joy, but she also thought it was something that made her less successful. And over time, she came to understand that it made her memorable and that people would see her as someone inspiring, that it brought energy into her office. And she's a general counsel now and still
Mm.
just is always investing energy into her fashion. And I think that's part of what makes her successful because I also think about the times I care somewhat about fashion. There's been plenty of times in my life where I haven't had the funds to really create things with fashion because I also don't like thrifting. I'm just one of these people like I'm too highly sensitive for it. I can't go look at 500 different pieces of clothing and
I get
not
it.
go crazy. So I've had plenty of experiences running a business where I'm kind of just wearing what I can put together and I don't feel as confident. And I know the difference of that feeling when I'm stepping out into a photo shoot with something that my stylist has crafted. And I'm like, yeah, I know I look freaking amazing. And that's, it's doing all of the work for, it's like, I think you said something about armor, like style as armor. And it is kind of like a, okay, so this is very nerdy, but I play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. I've gotten very into it. It's how I met my
Okay.
fiance. So
Love it.
there's a concept in Dungeons and Dragons called hit points. It's like how much life your character has. Anybody who plays any video game understands. You have a certain amount of life or health.
Okay.
There's
Okay.
something called temporary hit points that some spells can give you that's like bonus hit points on top of your hit points. And I
Yeah.
kind of feel like having a great outfit where you look amazing. You don't have panty lines. It's not pulling if you stand the wrong way. It's not getting wrinkled if you don't adjust perfectly. It feels like it gives you those like extra HP. This is not a metaphor for you. I get it, but some people listening might know some Dungeons and
Yeah.
Dragons stuff. But it's like a shield, right? It's
Yeah.
like an extra boost that you don't have to use your life energy having that buffer. It's already doing that work for you.
Absolutely. I do believe that your clothing are so much more than fabrics. They're really about building experiences and they're really about
Mm.
life. Clothes
Mm-hmm.
are life because you're taking them with you into whatever you decide to go and whatever you decide to do. And what's beautiful, and this is what I tell my client, they're there for you. They want the
Yeah.
best for you. So if you need protection, they'll give you protection. If you need to be like the star of the show, you will be
Mm.
the star of the show. If you need to feel like when you put a beautiful sweater that is like a really beautiful blanket because you need
Mm.
support and the way it
Mm-hmm.
feels on our skin, you'll get that. So when you start seeing that clothes are so much more and the way you're dressed is so much more than just getting dressed, it changes your awareness, it changes your connection to it. And it's not about only, besides the beauty, it's not the vanity, but it's
Mm-hmm.
really I really go back to being strategic. So as a
Mm-hmm.
woman in leadership, you can also choose the right fabrics to start a good conversation or to give the right attitude. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, this is what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we can use it and give messages. Animals use other ways, right, to protect themselves or to connect. But we are visual beings. That's
Yeah.
the sense that we use the most, and it's unconscious. And especially in the world that we live today, that we are visual
Mm-hmm.
communicators. I mean, everywhere these days, you get photos on LinkedIn, photos on Instagram,
Yeah.
YouTube's.
Yeah.
Everything is very, very visual. So then you have an opportunity to, like I said, use it. Use your dressing as a strategy to propel you so that you can create more of what you want in your life.
And I hear in that the more that you allow clothes to do some of that protection and support work, probably the less isolating you'll feel in your leadership. If you have something that's giving you an extra boost, I know when I'm having a rough emotional day, like you say, wearing something really soft, it feels, even though it's like I'm basically wearing a teddy bear, it feels
Yeah.
so protective. For me, the experience of being alone, feeling lonely is very cold. And it feels
Hmm.
very like you want to be in a den to protect yourself, and clothes can almost be that for you. So,
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And the same thing, the way that we're describing the energy of fabrics, that's also
mm-hmm.
the invitation that I with my clients is that when you wear a certain accessory, that becomes your amulet. And this goes back to idea
Ooh,
of rituals that is
yeah,
also there to, let's say
yeah,
going back during in the Western world, let's say we go back to
mm-hmm.
royalty, the crown representing
Mm-hmm.
something, all the elements that they
The
would use, or even
scepter,
the
yeah,
scepter, or
uh-huh.
even the
Special
clergy
necklace,
necklaces.
right?
It was
Yeah,
all that communication. In back then, people were not
yeah,
they were illiterate. So it was a visual communication that would say,
mm,
and the colors, like, okay, the red represented something, the black represented
mm,
something, the white represented something. But now what I say to women is, let's find either something from your history or something from today that
mm.
really is going to be there for you. It could be a ring, it could be a watch, it could be, like, for me, like if you're seeing, I have four necklaces,
I
and
love
each
them, yeah.
one has a meaning,
And
and
they all
each
really
one
sit in different places. You've done
instead
that
in
so
every place. So
well.
it's all
Yeah.
intentional, but this
Mm-hmm.
is part of, when they see me, this is like my brand. When you meet me, you're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah. And she loves to layer necklaces, and there's a reason why they're small, there's a reason why they're in the
Yeah.
gold, there's also like this butterfly. For me,
Uh-huh.
it has the meaning of that butterfly that goes through the
Yeah,
caterpillar,
renewal
and
and uh-huh.
renewal. When I mentioned that to one of my clients, one of her clients is Departments of Defense, and I offer her a butterfly, she was like, absolutely not. And first I was taken by it, like, whoa, like, why
Okay.
not? But then I understood. that in that environment, a butterfly, it was not going to be appropriate. So we
Mm.
switched it to something else where she felt for herself more comfortable. She was not a
Mm-hmm.
butterfly kind of person. And also
Mm-hmm.
with the environment, so she could. But we found
Mm-hmm.
something. So what I
That was
mean
her
is like
amulet.
that it
Yeah.
was her. So I think what I want to
Yeah,
try to
yeah.
say right now is like finding what that special piece that represents you, that you love, that you feel connected, and then you use it, just like Madeleine Albright and her pins.
Sure. Yeah.
That she would say,
You
"How are you
know,
doing? Read my pins."
I actually wear, it's very fine, and I don't, folks
Oh, I
listening
see.
won't
Yeah.
be able to see it,
Mm,
but on the video, you can see I have a very fine chain that I wear. I
mhm.
don't take off, basically. And I bought this before I moved down to California. And it was actually in a shop, and it was just this really fine gold chain. And it reminded me of a gold chain that my mom had given me many, many years ago that I, for whatever reason, don't have anymore, or it's
Yeah.
somewhere, but I don't know where it went. So there was a speaking to a childhood thing, but also the origin of the jewelry was California.
Yeah.
And it's at a time when I was really trying to lean more into an abundant life. And it represents so many things for me, of like
Mm.
finally being able to manifest several of my dreams. But I bought it before I had done that.
Yeah.
So I'm absolutely with you on that. I want to change gears a little bit because I do want to ask you to open up the private ledger for us. So when you're at the top, nobody
Mhm.
really sees your balance sheet of burdens. But here we get to open the private
Oh boy.
ledger with your
Oh boy.
permission.
Oh boy.
So I want to
Okay.
ask you, I'll ask you three
Let me
things.
uncross my legs. I'm like putting my legs like no.
Just
But
get
okay.
comfortable.
Let me
Okay.
like yeah, let me open shake my curls and okay. Yeah. Go for it.
Okay. So tell us, please, one cost that you've experienced of being in leadership, what it took from you emotionally or relationally or
Mm,
physically.
mm. Again, such a good question. I think one thing that obviously required, and that was also one of the reasons why I decided to step down, it was time.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. That it took so much of your time from you.
Yes, so much from my time where, I would have other commitments outside of work. And
Mm-hmm.
because the work was so consuming, it started to slowly eat up into my other relationships. And at the time,
Mm,
it was my marriage, you know,
mm,
and it was like, okay, when we are waiting for dinner and saying, oh, I'm not coming for dinner. And we
mm-hmm.
had made plans, and I had to say, well, but now we're behind, or the creators are not ready, or
Mm-hmm.
something happened. And one time, two times, but then when it starts to become like, well, then we're not going to make plans anymore, and then it starts to get friction, so then you're feeling it, you start kind of like losing that sense of balance where the work is
Mm-hmm.
just taking over so much of of you, that without you knowing, that you're starting to become, my natural state is somebody that it's always, I love to be with people. I'm always very optimistic. I have a lot of like, they call like a lot of shining energies of like, let's go, let's do it. And I started to become more enclosed and upset, and
Mm,
not so much fun to be around. But it was because
mm-hmm.
I was feeling like I didn't find the freedom. And I will still remember when I was working and they told us that we needed to come into work on Labor Day.
Mm,
And at the agency, you don't get paid by the day or by the hour. It's like your salary.
mm.
Rachel, I was so mad. I said, this is the day we're celebrating work, and you're making us work because there was a pitch. By
Yeah.
noon, they said, okay, Susana, you can go.
They're like, never mind.
Because I
You
was
can go
like,
home.
yeah, but I had it. It was like, like, okay, we've heard enough. And then everybody looked at me because they stayed. I was like, sorry, you know what I mean? But it was like
Yeah.
those ways where I was like, I had enough. I mean, we're working, but on Labor Day, we're also working. We don't even get Labor Day, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So time I think is so valuable.
What is one invisible asset that you didn't realize you had at the time, maybe?
I would say the I didn't have at the time the ability to dream big.
Yeah, being able to dream doesn't always, it doesn't, it's not a tangible, right? It doesn't seem like something that you have in the bank, but the ability to be creative and think of new things and take risks is, like we said in the earlier part of the episode, an invaluable asset for leaders.
Yeah. So I think I had a little sparks, and that's why I did the things that I did. But it was when I stepped out of advertising and then I decided to become an entrepreneur and start my
Mm-hmm.
own business and to start seeing like, okay, what else is possible and what else is possible. And now I have
Mm-hmm.
stepped into a space where envisioning a TED talk about my work. I'm envisioning a book about my work. I'm
Yeah.
making all these connections with all these different brands that they're seeing possible. So it's like, wow, it's like all of these that why not? And then I want to have a line of accessories. I don't know if they're
Mm-hmm.
gonna happen, but it's like I have really allowed myself to like put it out there and
Yeah.
see. And I think um, now more than ever, I'm allowing myself to dream, and I think it's just so beautiful. You know, it goes along with the creativity, and I think it's a good thing to do that in the world that we're living today, where it feels that we there's so much
Oppressive. Yeah.
oppressiveness, and everything is so unpredictable.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of going smaller and being fear based, allow yourself,
Mm-hmm.
if you're allowed to say, almost like this is allowing me also to stay in my lane as much as
Mm.
I'm aware of what's happening, to be in that energy. Because otherwise, if I really pay attention, I could get, like you said, get into a little ball and hide,
Yeah.
you know, in a
Yeah.
corner and just do nothing.
But everybody that we care about needs us to show up and be bold and dream. Yeah, I love that.
Absolutely. And with that said, if I can say, I write a monthly article on Substack. It's called Stylist Strategy. So in December, I wrote an article about clothing as strength and joy because I
Mm.
was feeling a little low. And it's like, where can I find strength and joy? And I apply my own medicine where I said,
Mm-hmm.
what
Mm-hmm.
gives me strength and joy are my clothes and are like my
Yeah.
necklaces. And I have a few things I was able to get from my grandmother, that I have some
Mm.
of her coats and some of the jewelry she bought me when I was a young girl and a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I'm wearing the earrings she gave me when
Oh,
I
I
was
love that.
18. So
Wow.
for any important event, I wear them, and I knew today was going to be special speaking with you. So in that sense, like whatever that means for anybody, where can you find that strength and joy? And for somebody else, could be preparing a beautiful meal or
Sure.
listening to music or having a practice of, anything, learning how to make a fire. It could be your way of, if you live
Yeah.
outside, you have a home and you want to light a fire,
Mm-hmm.
or anything that really makes you sing, makes your soul sing.
What is one investment that you are making now for your well being or for your soul?
So one investment that I'm doing with discipline is reading.
Mm. What are you reading?
I'm reading 3 books.
Uh huh.
So one is called Deep
Ooh.
Work.
Ooh.
The other one is called The Path of Least Resistance.
Ooh. Beautiful cover.
So these are my daily readings that I try to in the mornings before I start my work. Like
Uh,
I sort of connect with my day. I read for like 25 minutes. And then at night, I'm reading another book. I just started it, and it's the story of a woman that she comes from the LGBT community. She grew up in the 1930s, and she was an art historian, and how she uses her work to help during the World War II
Wow.
to save so many of the art that the Nazis wanted to destroyed, and how she
Wow.
becomes a spy. And just, oh, I just started reading it, but it's fascinating because, again, for me, it brings the world of Paris, the art, the design, and she mentions Pablo Picasso and Coco Chanel,
Oh, it sounds amazing.
and
You'll
then
have to
also, yeah.
give us the title for the show notes in case people want to hear about it. You can tell me
Yeah,
later if you need to
yeah, I
look it
think
up.
it's called the spy art, and I'll tell you the name. But it's find that I'm
Yeah.
finding it really fascinating, and also as a woman that she was LGBT, and during those years, and she was in a
Yeah.
relationship, and just all the different dynamics. And again, so it's that learning. Oh, something that I learned: France was the first country where women could get paid, and they could become part of a union without having your husband giving you the permission to join.
Wow.
And it was only in 1920,
Only 100 years ago. Yeah.
only 100 years ago. So I find that
Wow.
all of those elements like enrich my work and my relationship
Mm-hmm.
to women and leadership.
I'm going to ask you. So that was your private ledger, and those are all great answers. I'm going to ask you two more questions and then we're going to wrap. What do
Yes.
you wish more leaders felt permission to say out loud?
Well, since my work is mostly it is with women, I would say the invitation for women to show femininity.
Yeah. That they could say, I am a woman, I am feminine, and I am powerful.
Yeah. And I love beauty. I love to
Mm-hmm.
adorn. I love to create beautiful spaces. So with that energy, I'm gonna dress and show up in a certain way. I'm gonna
Mm.
dress my office in a certain way. I'm gonna be mindful that if we're in a meeting, perhaps I'll bring a bouquet of flowers. I'll bring a
Mm.
candle, so that the energy of the feminine, it's more present in the environments.
I love that. For our last question, it's the time machine question. If you
Oh,
could go back in time,
mhm.
what would you say to yourself earlier in your career?
Go for it. Go for it. Because as much as I've gone for it, but I still, if there was maybe another episode, it's all the ways where I stopped myself, I reduced myself in my
Mm.
early years because I thought things were not really possible.
Mm.
Like opportunities to where I study, and then I had opportunities to go to one of the best art schools in the world, and I got accepted, and I said no. I had an
Mm.
opportunity to go to Paris and work do an internship, but the idea of going to Europe, and I didn't know French, all the buts and buts and buts,
Yeah. Yeah.
where I said, no, I'm going to start small. And I started at a studio. Still, my energy wanted me to grow, but
Yeah.
I'm very proud of where I am today, but I would have said that. And so that's what
Mm.
I've done with my children from a very young age. You really inviting them, I think, that idea of like, create your life, go for what you want, all is possible, make it happen.
I love that. If people want to get in touch with you
Mhm.
to be able to use your amazing styling and strategy services, how do they find you?
They can go to my website, which is my name, Susana Perczek, styling.com. They can also find me on LinkedIn, and they can also find me on Substack at under Style as Strategy.
Style
So,
is strategy?
Style as Strategy.
As. Style as strategy on Substack. And for the folks who might not know how to spell your name, if they're not looking at the show notes, can you spell your name for them?
For sure. So it's Susana And then my last name is P as in Paul, E-R, C as in cat, Z as in zebra, E-K.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you've been here with us. I think this was a really interesting and helpful conversation for all of our listeners.
Perfect.
thanks for thanks for being
Thank you
with me.
so. It was a pleasure. I honestly had so much fun, and it was like had so many flavors, and it's just like wonderful.
Thank you so much for listening to Lonely at the Top. If today's conversation resonated, I hope you'll give yourself permission to pause even for a moment and check in with what you might be carrying silently. You don't have to hold it all alone. If you're ready for support that goes deeper than strategy, you can learn more about working with me at rachelalexandria.com. If you know another leader who needs to hear this, please send it their way. Because, yeah, it's lonely at the top, but it doesn't have to stay that way.